All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Angelo Carlos podcast. Today's episode is about how to reinvent yourself. And the reason I make this episode is because a lot of our guests in their careers, they've done some amazing things. But you're gonna start realizing in life, in your career, in whatever you're passionate about, you're gonna always have to reinvent yourself and become a better version of yourself within your life and your career. Why do I say that? Right? For me, I've had to reinvent myself several times, right? I went to school as a biology major, realized I didn't want to become a doctor, wanted to learn business, so I had to learn business and I had to learn technology because I really wanted to be in tech, right? I really wanted to go to work at Google. So I had to reinvent myself and become a different person, a better person, a more advanced version of myself in order to kind of achieve my goals, right? A lot of us, when you're in school, you get a major and then you'll major in that major. For me, it's biology. And then you'll think you're pigeonholed into that specific career for your whole life, right? And I say this because this is what happened to me, right? I thought because I was majoring in biology, I would have to follow that life or follow that path of my certain major. I thought I was going to have to become a doctor, have to become a dentist, and that is my path just because I went to school and learned that specific trade. But it's not true. I'm a living testament of that. And I'm a living testament of you need to kind of always reinvent yourself. So went to school, majored in biology, figured that I wanted to learn business. So I took the time to study for GRE and the GMAT, and then got into UCLA Anderson, where I learned business, right? Knew nothing about business prior to coming in. Worked a few roles in business, but that's what I studied. I studied it, right? So while at UCLA, I took a whole bunch of finance and business classes to learn how business works, right? Realized, okay, I don't want to get into things like investment banking. I want to get into tech, right? So I learned everything I can about technology, learning basic things about coding, as well as how to look at businesses from the tech sector, right? At UCLA, I applied to Google, got into Google, started working at Google as a PM on the data center side of things, right? And this is where another rebirth, another version of me was born, where I had to reinvent myself to learn about data centers, right? Because you gotta think of it, right? This is one thing I always thought, like going to a new job, I thought someone was gonna teach me, hold my hand, give me a manual, how it works, kind of how school works, where you go to school, you get a textbook, you read, you learn, then you're good, then you get an A, you get a B, you get a C, whatever it may be. But the real world is not like that. Going to Google, going to cloud, I knew nothing about data centers, so I had to learn everything I could about it, right? Because no university teaches about data centers. No university teaches about product management, program management. You're not going to learn that at school. So get that through your brain. It's like no one's teaching your class. You're going to learn that at work. And the way you learn that at work is you do these few things, right? First, you interview 10 to 20 people who are in your role or who have some extent of knowledge of your role, right? So at Google, I would email around 20 or so stakeholders, aka like my immediate team, people who I'll interact with, people who've been at Google for a while, and then people who I may learn something from them. And I'll just ask them everything they know, and I'll take notes on that, right? I consider this something like market research, right? For you, you're in a new job. Market research means you're doing your own research of your role, right? Whenever you're in consulting, right? If you're like a consultant, or for us at UCLA, we had this project called GAP. We had to do research where we had to learn everything we could about a certain topic or certain industry that we knew nothing about. And the way we did that is by interviewing stakeholders or people who have been in that certain industry for a while, and we kind of learn everything they can. So whenever you get a new job, whether it be you're working at a bank, whether you're working at like a hospital, whatever you're working at, you need to reach out to like 20 or so folks who have been in that role and ask them everything you can. So just get a document, type out all the notes you get from that person, have a set list of questions, around 10 questions or so, and ask them everything you can about that role, what they were going to do. And then you want to take those notes down and put it in a document. You want to have this document with everyone's notes from each person, right? This is what I did. I did that, and that's how I learned about data centers, right? So for me, I interviewed the 5 people in my immediate team, and then I interviewed all the technical program managers who are in cloud and who have experience building a data center or building procedures behind a data center. And then I interviewed everyone from tax, from legal, from finance, because I wanted to understand the business and legal side of things, right? So whenever you get a new job, that's what you want to do. You want to just interview everyone you can. This is also applicable to an internship. If you're getting an internship, you want to just interview everyone you can, and then that way you can learn more about your role, more about the company, and figure out where to go from there, right? That's kind of how you get your feet wet, how you reinvent yourself every time you're in a new role, new job, whatever it may be. And another thing too, I want you guys to realize is that with the advent of artificial intelligence, with the advent of search engines like Google, Bing, you have unlimited access to information. And the reason I say that is because once you know you have all this information, you need to take it upon yourself to learn after work, to learn during your breaks, whatever it may be. Because there's going to be some people telling you, oh, you need to have good work-life balance, but when you're starting out, you know nothing, and there's going to be a huge hill for you to climb, right? And if that's the case, it's okay to put in the extra effort, right? I have a lot of family members who always told me work-life balance is great. It is great, right? But when you want to achieve something, you will need to put the extra work in the beginning, right? I'm not saying stay up till 1 in the morning to study, but maybe work till like 8 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock, right? Just learning, put those extra hours in, because that will also transfer over to any new skill or new thing you're trying to learn. For me right now, learned a lot of business, learned a lot about like project management, but I'm not good at coding, right? And I had this thought where just because I never majored in computer science or anything technical in undergrad, I always thought, oh, I'll never be good at coding, which is a lie. It's a lie. Because right now, I've learned that it takes 40 hours to get good at a skill. It takes 100 hours to get really good at a skill. And most of us take 40 years just to start something new. And it's not that we're afraid to learn something new. We're afraid of the feeling of inadequacy, of feeling stupid or feeling dumb because we're not good at a certain skill. Like for me right now, I'm going into Python, trying to learn Python because a lot of ChatGPT, OpenAI uses Python, and then all of this large language models, all this AI is all Python. And listen to YC and Michael Seibel, one of the head people at YC, telling us we need to be technical. And I'm terrified to learn code because I don't want to feel stupid. But it's all a part of the journey of learning and growing and evolving in your career and always reinventing yourself. So you'll always need to reinvent yourself throughout your entire career, throughout your entire job, throughout your entire life. In whatever major you are, whatever like career you chose prior, and you want to pivot to something else, just know you can do it. Don't let people's opinions of you, don't let your fears of inadequacy or insecurity allow you to not be the best version of yourself, right? So whenever you want to learn a new skill, keep in the back of your mind, 40 hours to become good at it, 100 hours you become really good at it, 10,000 hours to become amazing. but most of us will just stop and never attempt it because we're so scared of feeling stupid or feeling dumb. But a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Okay? So always, never doubt yourself. Because there's thoughts coming in your head that you feel like, I'm not good enough. That's not true. It's never true. You can do anything you set your mind to. I also want to talk about AI and why it's so big. So back in the day, oil was like the gold mine, right? So if you're in these fields, you go dig underground, hope that oil strikes oil. You can harvest the oil and sell it for millions, $100 million to companies, and then you'd be basically an oil tycoon. Now it's data. Data is our new oil for this generation. As especially as AI is becoming so big. Think of it as artificial intelligence, large language models, and they require large amounts of data to process, to run, to train your model, right? And what happens is a lot of companies are going to move to AI and they need data, right? But most of the data on the internet or in the world is usually stored in private companies, right? Unless you have a lot of data stored on the internet, which most of us don't, all the real hardcore data is stored in private companies. So think of it, all these companies like your Airbnb, your Google, your Meta, any company that collects and stores data, they're sitting on gold mines, right? And if they're able to use AI to refine that data, aka use AI to predict what the consumer wants to buy because they have so much data, or how to properly market to someone because they have so much data, that's $1 billion, trillion industry, or basically solution to make a lot of money for these companies. The way large language models works is that forgive me, this is kind of a basic understanding, right? You get a lot of data, you train the data by giving it a prompt, by refining it, making sure it's good, and then you're using it to kind of come to conclusions, right? Very, very basic understanding. I could be wrong. But the important part is that the data that these companies have need to be of high quality. Why is that? This is because if you train an AI or like a GPT on bad data, you're going to get bad outputs. You're going to get improper conclusions, right? So what you need to do is you need to make sure this data is clean, so that way you're more able to predict certain outcomes, right? And companies like Scale AI, Surge AI, they are seen as like a refinery. Imagine if you're an oil refinery, right? You give oil to the refinery, they make it pure so that you can use it for your car, right? So Scale AI, Surge AI, they get the data from those big companies. They refine the data and make sure it's properly labeled. Labeling is what the refining process is. And then they're giving it to like companies like OpenAI, like Llama or Meta to do their AI kind of businesses and so forth, right? So there's a huge market for data labeling, right? Making sure you have clean, proper data. And that's kind of where data is going. Another thing too you need to also understand is that a lot of this AI technology, and I mentioned this in my previous video, it requires GPUs, right? And this is an example of another company reinventing themselves. So listen to where I'm going with this. NVIDIA is a chip company, right, in the Bay Area. And essentially, they were just making chips for like gaming laptops, right? So that way they have faster and better graphics, right? They understood that AI was the next wave is the future. So they started heavily focusing on developing chips for the GPUs that are required for a lot of the artificial intelligence work that's going on, right? Which is crazy. This is an example of a company reinventing themselves for artificial intelligence, right? So that is a way of reinventing yourself. That's why also understanding that there's this huge kind of economy with artificial intelligence when it comes to hardware, when it comes to the data itself, right? And I want to jump into another company reinventing themselves, right? When Amazon was first starting out, Jeff Bezos quit his job at the hedge fund, just turned 30. He said, I'm going to jump in this thing called the dot-com boom and go on the internet. His boss told him he was crazy for doing this, but Jeff really insisted I'd be crazy not to do this, right? Which is what's happening with the AI revolution right now. If you don't jump into this AI trend, it's going to be here for a whole life. You're missing out, right? Learn what you can, go on Google, research as much as you can, and build something. So back to Amazon. Amazon started as a online bookstore for people to buy books, www.amazon.com, during the internet boom, right? They're doing well. And then they had to pivot to become the everything store, right? So when they pivoted to become the everything store, meaning that they basically are an online website that sells everything. You can go to Amazon.com, 2-day shipping, whatever it may be, right? But they pivoted again and went to TI. TI stands for technical infrastructure, right? And that is where most of Amazon's market capture, market value, that's where most of the investing stock price is value into, is the technical infrastructure in Amazon. Isn't that crazy how a company had to reinvent themselves 2 times, and now they're on their third rendition as a technical infrastructure data center company at AWS, Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services basically is like a whole bunch of data centers where they house the internet, right? This is how the internet works, just through data centers. And Amazon was the first company to do this because you need cloud storage and everything's all through data centers. So Amazon, most of its value came from AWS, right? So that's an example of a company constantly reinvesting itself. And most investors, when they're investing in Amazon, they didn't realize that a lot of the value is going to come from AWS. So constantly reinventing yourself, learning about the trends, the future, right? And the way I mean that is like, you need to look at data as the technical infrastructure of the artificial intelligence generation, movement, whatever it may be, right? Right. The reason I say this is because at Cloud, Google Cloud, realized that technical infrastructure, TI, data centers are the backbone of the internet. So that's never going away, right? And it's such a big business that Google is losing money, tons of money, but they keep reinvesting in TI because they know that it's going to be huge, right? That's why ChatGPT, OpenAI partner with Microsoft because they got Azure credits, so that's where they can host a lot of their AI stuff on the Azure and data centers of Microsoft, right? That's why it's so important, like technical debt. And then right now, data is our version of technical infrastructure for artificial intelligence, right? Because the more data you have, the more accurate your model is going to be, the better you can train it. And then the more accurate the data is, the more accurate your model is, right? That's why companies like Scale AI, Surge are focusing so much on data labeling for artificial intelligence and data, right? So all of these companies that are going to move on to this AI side of things, they're standing on a whole bunch of data, right? And this is their oil, this is their gold mine that they just need to learn to refine and make better, so that way they can make accurate predictions for their companies, for their to kind of grow in this AI wave, right? So look at it as artificial intelligence is here to stay. We have several opportunities right now, right? Opportunities in the hardware side. I think most of the hardware side is through NVIDIA, and they're using TSM, which is a Taiwanese microchip company, to help build a lot of the hardware for them, right? That's the hardware side of things. When it comes to data refinery, and kind of making sure data labeling is correct, Scale AI is leading the way there. And then we have like the end road where it's like the B2C, B2B, which is business to customer, business to business, where you're actually seeing artificial intelligence being used by certain businesses or certain consumers. And that is your Bard. That is your Chat GPT. These are what you're actually seeing the end kind of end user interface of it, right? But you have all these things in between that have to go into it, right? And keep in mind, we're only in the first or second inning of this AI, which is crazy. And if you want to jump into this, learn how to code. If you're still in college, major in computer science. If you're out of college, go online. Learn everything you can about large language models. Sign up for bootcamp. Learn how to code through bootcamp, or even do free code academy or free code camp, and learn about how to code. That way you're more aware. I was listening to Brian Johnson. He's like the former founder of Venmo, or he bought Venmo and sold it to PayPal. And he was saying how physics, math, and computer science or coding is the language of the future, because technology will continue to disrupt society and continue to be here no matter what, right? So if you're very into business, you're very into technology or the future of the world, coding is here to stay, right? As well as artificial intelligence. So don't be afraid to step up to the plate and learn about these new terminologies, learn about these new things, because this is our future. This is where the world is going. For me, I want you guys to understand that you will always need to reinvent yourself. This is kind of what stuck with me, or I know I mentioned this in the beginning, but you need to think of it. When Bill Gates was in school, he didn't have an integrated development environment, right? He didn't have all these tutorials. He didn't have anything. All these new languages came up recently, computer language and JavaScript, right? So for someone like Bill Gates, he had to always constantly learn new technologies, learn new languages, as he kind of grew his career, as he kind of grew Microsoft, right? Engineers at Google, at Meta, all these big tech companies, right? Usually they go to school, they learn about C#, C++, or all these Java, all these languages, right? But then when you get to work, they have to learn something completely new. And they are able to reinvent themselves every time there's a new project, new language, new ask, new whatever it may be, right? So for you guys in your career, learn and be okay with failing. Be okay with not knowing what to do, but be comfortable with progressing, with failing, feeling stupid. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I wish someone told this to me, because at Google, I feel so stupid being around so many smart people, thinking that everyone was born this genius. Everyone was from Harvard. Everyone was from MIT. Everyone was from Stanford. And I felt like an idiot because I wasn't as technically capable as them, or I wasn't business as sound as them. I wasn't eloquent as each of these people. But as Steve Jobs says, when you kind of get into these companies, you start realizing that the world that was built around you was built by people no smarter than you or I. What does that mean? The computer that you see in front of you, the plane you rode on, the car you drove, the food that was created, whatever it may be in this life, someone who's just like me or you, no smarter, created it because they just put some time and effort into it, right? So you can honestly do anything you set your mind to. Don't ever forget that, right? One of the things I learned these past few years was that I've always been overweight. I've been 230, 240 pounds, 5'10", 5'11", so always overweight. And I eventually became 160, so around 70 pounds, 80 pounds down. And I always thought I had to be overweight my whole life. But when I changed that mindset, I can reinvent myself that I want to be fit. I want to have abs. I want to be shredded. I want to be healthy. I changed that about myself because I believed in myself that you could always reinvent yourself. It doesn't matter if you're 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. You can always reinvent yourself. And don't ever be scared, right? Because you're always going to be scared for failure, but you're good enough. You're good enough, you're good enough, you're good enough, right? My whole life, I thought that I needed to work at Google. I needed to go to UCLA to kind of validate myself as smart. But in reality, I've always been smart. I've always had the drive, the dedication. It was always inside me, and similar to what's inside you, where you always had that drive, the dedication. If you really wanted to become someone, set your mind to things, and honestly adapt and change and constantly reinvent yourself throughout your life. I was listening to a story about Brett Taylor. Brett Taylor was one of the youngest product managers at Google, led Google to build, I believe, like one of Google's products. I'm not sure it was Gmail or Google Maps. Did that, left, started a startup, sold his startup to Facebook for about $70 million, and then is one of the reasons Facebook has a like button. And then now he is one of the co-CEOs at Salesforce. He was basically groomed by Mark Benioff, the founder of Salesforce, to be a co-CEO, and he is on board ChatGPT and OpenAI, one of the world's most important startups at this time. This is an example of someone constantly reinventing themselves, going from a product manager, then to a founder, then to a co-CEO, then to a board member for AI, right? And you need to think of it like when Brett was in school, a lot of the technologies that he learned at Stanford were probably not taught or the same as what was being done at Google or at Meta or at his startup. You just constantly learning, growing, going to Google, watching YouTube videos on how to do certain things to reinvent yourself and learn a certain new skill or new task. Because as we said in the beginning, it only takes 40 hours to get good at a skill, 100 hours to get really good at a skill, 10,000 to be amazing, right? But most of us don't start because we're so scared of feeling stupid or inadequate, right? So that's an example of someone constantly reinventing themselves. For me, overweight, wanted to lose weight, had to start believing in myself, losing 10 pounds, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, until I'm at my weight right now, constantly reinventing myself. For my career, realizing that I wanted to get into business technology, even though it's a biology major. I learned about Krebs cycle. I learned about chemistry. I learned about biochemistry. Never used any of that in my career. And I'm proud to say that I've honestly reinvented myself. Went to UCLA, learned about business, got a job at Google, learned about data centers, learned about technology, learned about businesses. Now, reinventing myself again, learning about Python, learning about OpenAI, learning about ChatGPT, learning about large language models, learning about scale AI and how they label data. Why is that important for AI? Learning about microchips in the world global economy, how NVIDIA and TSM have a hold on the AI side of things when it comes to the hardware. Also understanding how ChatGPT and OpenAI and Meta, how all these companies utilize labeling for their AI and their data. All this stuff, it's created by people who are no smarter than you and I. Yes, they have very technical backgrounds, but they learned it. They learned it through school, through YouTube, through reading. That means you can learn anything you set your mind to. And you'll feel stupid at first when you start learning about something. But as you put the time in, the work in, the hard work in to learn anything, you can do it. So with that being said, I believe in you, Jello family. I hope you enjoyed this talk about how to reinvent yourself and where I feel like AI is progressing. through each of these industries. With that being said, Jello family, like the video, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you watching this episode of the podcast on how to reinvent yourself and become a better version of yourself and learn more. I hope you learned a lot through this video. So with that being said, Jello family, love y'all. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.